Welcome, everybody, to Vision Untethered, conversations with inspirational visionary leaders. My name is Jill Simonds. I am founder of Savvy Strategic Partners. We are a full service, dedicated leadership team, fractional executives who are executing vision, increasing business value, and helping founder owners realize freedom. We will authentically unpack learnings, insights in business and in life today, identifying some of the saboteurs that keep many visionaries tied down. Today's guest, Brandon Cullen, is innovative founder of Madabolic, a cutting-edge fitness brand that's redefining the way people approach strength and conditioning. With a focus on high-intensity training, Brandon has created unique fitness experiences that push athletes to their limits and foster a sense of community and personal growth. His approach combines effective workouts with supportive environment that helps individuals at all fitness levels achieve their goals. Brandon, thanks so much for being here. I'm happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So what inspired your journey into business ownership and led you to choose this industry in fitness and in health?
Yeah, to a degree, I was a little bit forced into business ownership. I grew up in, excuse me, Canada, and part of my journey getting to the States was a path of chasing a hockey career. And part of doing that, there was no exposure to any education really post high school. So I went
Mm-hmm.
into the minor league systems of some of the top leagues in the world and kind of forfeited that NCAA eligibility. It was just part of it was the way it was when I played. They've recently changed the rules, which I think is good for the next generation of players. But to
Hmm.
kind of fast forward through a 10-year career, I had a unfortunate career-ending concussion and had little education post high school and had to pivot into trying to make something happen on my own. And fitness was a
Yeah.
big part of my game. It was even a part of supplementing income in my off season, training other players. So, like we're talking about before the recording, it
Hmm.
made sense at least. I'm not going to sit here and say, getting into fitness and building a company around fitness was an easy thing, but it made sense for me to give it a go. And, I met a great business partner in our final years playing, and we co-founded the company today that is called Madabolic. And yeah, I'm really proud of not only our story, but the team we have around us now. It's a fun place to come to work every day for sure.
Yeah, awesome. How does your purpose then and that journey align with the new unique challenges you've faced in scaling a business?
Yeah, that's a bit of a loaded question, right?
Mm.
Because purpose and scale sometimes don't go hand in hand, right? If I was to strip apart purpose,
Hmm.
I have enough, of an ego of wanting to chase big things and wanting to see what I can accomplish on a personal level.
Hmm.
A lot of people in my space, they set out to change people's lives. And that became a great byproduct of me and my partner wanting to set out to design a best in practice.
Hmm.
I know it's not the popular thing to say, but hopefully it reaches some people. Like we wanted to create a product that fitness professionals respected. And when we landed in a market, we wanted to be considered one of the best.
Hmm.
Um, Part of chasing excellence, you change a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
And then the more you go to scale, the more people you reach. So the interesting place we're in now is accepting scale and going after scale. Sometimes you have to balance that with that original purpose, right? Because scale brings its own challenges. And
Hmm.
it sometimes can test the fabric of that original vision.
Right.
And the way I like to explain it to people, like where I sit today. is that thing that me and my business partner drew up on a napkin close to 15 years ago that, 80 to 90% of it stays intact as we see what we can really do with this thing on a bigger scale.
Hmm. Great. Love that. So what's a pivotal kind of mistake or learning you encountered in this journey together with your business partner? How did that address and shape your growth strategy moving forward?
I think the biggest thing I can think of is, early on recognizing that the two of us were more leaders
Hmm.
than managers of people. And that was an eye-opening pretty quick that not everybody thinks exactly like Brandon and Kirk.
Hmm.
Kirk's my business partner.
Okay.
Um, but I also think we have been good with knowing our limitations. We prefer being in a leadership role and
Right.
then hiring and surrounding ourselves with people that are amazing managers of people. It's such a
Hmm.
unique skill set. It's something that I really admire in people and colleagues and
Hmm.
friends that you can see how they can approach that managing of people, where we are more guys that like to lace up our shoes and lead by example. And when you
Hmm.
talk about visionary, I think the two of us sit more of in a visionary role. We fill different areas of the vision,
Hmm.
but definitely learning that, you're not the best manager of people was an eye-opening pretty early.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
What were some of the indicators for you at the time that you were too involved or ever got to points you were too involved in daily operations, management of people, and how did that limit the company's ability to scale and to grow?
Mainly just seeing conflict
Mm,
arising too often. I think if you're someone who is a very black and white person, I'm someone that doesn't enjoy repeating themselves. If I say
mm,
something, I expect that to be done a specific way, and it's probably, based on it's a product of an environment, right? I mean, all we knew was the cutthroat nature of professional athletics, and if you didn't
mm,
show up and do your job every day, you were done. You were kicked off the team. You were cut. You were so not, and I'm not looking for any sympathy here or anything, but the
mhm.
way we would approach how we wanted something done is probably too cutthroat. At times, it's probably too black and white. At times, you'll have and this is why I don't mind talking about this, right? Because you can put
Yeah.
some tone behind the struggle. A lot of people would tell you
Hmm.
there's a lot of gray in the world, and I would tell you there is, and there's a lot of black and white in the world too, but
Yeah.
that doesn't land with everybody. And, learning that easy, created, I think, or learning that early, not easy, sorry.
Yeah.
That just was an
Yeah.
eye opener that there might be a better way to do things. There might be a
Hmm.
better person for this role.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I hope that answered it pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that is stepping to the role and modeling of leadership is knowing the strengths and weaknesses across the team, your own blind spots, your own weaknesses, and knowing that that balance is required and refinement in the shape of a team because there's a mix and diversity of backgrounds, experiences, thinking, mindsets, the way people work, and to harness that the right way, we need to get out of our own way. We need to ensure that the right mix and blend and complement of those on the team with those varying mindsets sets can collaborate together. So
Hmm.
beautiful lesson learned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and especially as you go to scale, right? And there
Hmm.
is an argument, right? We're a franchise model, so that
Okay.
brings a
Hmm.
whole other complexity to it. And the way I explain it is if you're a corporately owned, um, portfolio, you really can control the culture right down to every decision. The
Hmm.
franchising model, like they are businesses within a business. So like that
Right.
franchise owner is a business owner. And when you talk about different upbringings, experiences, like they
Hmm.
do have more of a say in their business than
Right.
if we were to grow through a corporate model where you control all the hiring,
Hmm.
you control everything, right? And that's just not franchising.
Hmm.
And I think some of my colleagues that sit in my position, they dumb it down and they say, oh no, franchising, we're one happy family and everybody's happy to do things all together the exact same way. And that couldn't be that's a lie. It's just a flat out
Hmm.
lie. It looks
Hmm.
good on paper, it looks good on a LinkedIn post, but it's not
Right.
franchising.
Yeah. Yeah. And even franchising and the model itself is not replicable the exact same way when you've got a multitude of business owners that buy into that model. It all does come down to who they are as a person, the core values, the culture that they're steering and stewarding is going to vary from one person to the next, oftentimes.
It
And
is.
having having experience in that, and like you said earlier at the beginning, your pursuit of excellence, if that is, the end all be all reason and purpose, then that guides everything else and everything that you're putting into what it kind of already exists as somewhat of a framework, but that's only just the foundation of it. Where you take it and how it applies and how you grow it within a culture and a group of people is not going to be the same from one person to the next.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
even more so, you don't control the hires. You don't
Mm,
control, like pretty much what you can do is vet the
okay.
owner as
Hmm.
best you can. But even like legally,
Right.
let me give you an example. The best way to describe a franchising system is your series of playbooks,
Hmm.
best practices, and proven successes, and also failures to stay away from.
Hmm.
That's a model, right?
Yep.
Um, but the problem is like you can have like turnkey systems. But to go to your point, you can't just plug and play a human. There's not a turnkey human that's just going to
Right.
act the exact way you ask them to act. And
Hmm.
that's where the idea of maintaining a culture and the bigger you scale, maintaining that culture becomes more and more strategic and difficult to maintain. So
Right.
we've done a good job though. Like we aren't trying to grow at the rate of some of our competitors. So I do believe we keep that idea of maintaining culture a little bit stronger. A lot of people
Hmm.
in the franchising space, if someone has the right bank account, they'll sell them a unit. Whether they're passionate about the product you're selling, a lot of it just comes down to they have the money to fund it.
Hmm.
We still follow that cultural piece, I think, a lot more than many of our competitors. That some will say could hurt the level of scale,
Hmm.
but I also like the way we are growing.
Hmm.
So not right or wrong, right? It's
Yeah,
just two different ways to look at it.
absolutely. Valuing the direction versus the speed. Um, can appreciate that for sure. When there's a direction in mind and the rate of speed isn't as important, you're not sacrificing as much. I think that comes with the rate of speed that some companies, push that scale. But maybe you
Eh,
flounder more, you're moving too quickly, lots of starts and
Yeah,
stops, a lot of repeating and, going backwards a little bit in areas. It
and
either one is
you
go
can
ahead.
argue it either way, right? Like some of
Hmm.
our partners that are seasoned, speed also creates a lot of opportunity,
Hmm.
a lot of exposure.
Yeah.
It helps with the corporate balance sheet of having funds to continually keep growing as you're pumping out units.
Hmm.
I think it's just making that choice early. Are you chasing speed and growth and maybe a quick exit? Are you chasing, I don't love the word legacy. It sounds a little bit cheesy and overdone, but are you chasing, some
Hmm.
chasing excellence? I can live with that. Chasing excellence, doing something that hasn't been done, trying to
Hmm.
offer something completely unique. And again, There's a lot of people that are doing things with speed that are probably pretty happy and doing pretty well. We
Hmm.
just chose a different direction.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that. Can you share an experience where you felt trapped by the business and what strategies you implemented to create space?
Um, Probably not, because I'm also a person that I almost seem to do better when you're in the middle of chaos and there's
Mm,
no time for thinking and you have to rapidly prioritize. We're actually in one of those
mm,
moments right now where we're shifting a lot of um, key people into new roles, and we're looking at our voice and marketing strategy for 2025. And a
hmm.
lot of that has a trickle down effect to years of learning management softwares, communication systems.
Yeah.
And I never feel stuck because I know this isn't a super healthy thing it's healthy for some business. It's not healthy for other parts of life, but I have a very good ability to compartmentalize.
Hmm.
Um, so for relationships, probably not awesome. For business, sometimes
It's
works
great.
extremely well, where I can
Hmm.
look at today and know what needs to be done today and not think about anything else or worry
Hmm.
about what happened yesterday, even though yesterday, funny enough, was a difficult day. It's over. I
Yeah.
have shit to do today, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I can't really think of where I felt trapped because I was probably already thinking of how to get out of the trap by the time it was
Yeah.
set.
Hmm. Wow. What misstep maybe along the way taught you the most about aligning your vision with effective execution, aligning those two and the forward momentum? And then how do you apply that lesson to keep moving the business forward?
Um, because this really is my first business, I'd have to
Hmm.
kind of talk about, I think, what's happening now, because these are our kind of growth years, and we're
Yeah.
seeing successes and underperforming units and ones in the middle. It's kind of
Hmm.
funny. One of my partners told me if you look at a healthy franchise system, and say you had 100 units or 100% of your units, you'll have 20% that overachieve, like they just kill it.
Hmm.
You'll have 20% that kind of will underachieve and could be your kind of problem child.
Hmm.
And then you have 60% in the middle that do extremely well.
Okay.
What I found was when we focus too much on the outliers, you really stunted your growth. And when we started to focus more on developing all of the systems for the 60% in the middle and allowing your outliers to be outliers, and the way this kind of works is
Hmm.
those top 20%, they're those people that you could put them in anything and they're going to kill it. They're just
Yeah.
those people.
Hmm.
So I think it's unfair to sell their numbers, whether it's revenue or membership, because like that's
Yeah.
somewhat telling a story. It's telling a lie. So kind of forget
Hmm.
about those people. And then the people underperforming, a lot of times it's really just not following the game plan.
Okay.
It's not following the playbooks and it's not following the best practices. And oftentimes too, it's maybe we made a mistake from awarding a franchise territory, and then there was a trickle down effect of that leader hiring the wrong people kind of below them. And the other thing people don't talk
Mm.
about? Sometimes life happens. So you have a
Right.
franchisee that has, a great idea to do this, and all of a sudden they're pregnant with twins. Well, that's
Right.
a problem. That's tough. That's not their fault. That's not our fault. But if
Hmm.
you're able to like throw out these 20% and you build a system that makes the majority thrive and that the majority can follow and can
Yeah.
execute, that's where we have found success. And it just keeps proving itself over and over and over again. Focus on
Hmm.
that bulk in
Yeah.
the middle and make sure they do well.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. How can owners within the model that you've built then design or tailor onto systems and processes that allow their companies to thrive without their constant oversight? So, do you have kind of a framework in mind, or maybe even a psychological mindset understanding of those owners, and what's allowed them to thrive? That 60% that really sustain and do well, how are they kind of adapting, or what's kind of the psychological mindset of those that you've been able to pinpoint?
They they follow the game plan.
Okay.
Even I'll give you this, even the outliers, some of the top 20%, they can be your biggest pain in the asses because they are the visionary thinkers, the
Hmm.
chasers, the doers, right?
Hmm.
Um, but they are at least chasing growth. The 20%, there's more of like, well, this doesn't work in my market, and I think my consumer would like this different. And what happens is you start creating a community that doesn't support the main DNA of the business. So, like you talk about like a psychological component for that 60% in the middle,
Hmm.
there are more people that say, I bought a franchise model. Tell me exactly how to do this. Give me a
Yep.
checklist. I like to check off the items. I
Hmm.
want your advice. Give me best practices. And weirdly enough, there's a there's an interesting correlation with people with like a team sports background.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not talking like professional athletics, but let's say they were part of a team in high school or college.
Hmm.
And, I can't pinpoint this, but there's this idea of when you are a team sport athlete versus, say, like a single sport athlete. Sometimes the single sport athlete fall in that top 20%. You know what I mean? A very
Hmm.
individual kind of drive. But if you think of a team sport athlete at some point, they've been asked to commit to something bigger than themselves,
Yeah.
a collective team vision and a way to play their game as a team to go win or perform the best they can.
Yeah.
And I think it's a nice metaphor for a franchise system that you may have a community here that is a little bit different than here, but we're still going to pursue and sell the same agenda.
Hmm.
I know this is a dumb experience or a dumb, not experience, a dumb example, but
Hmm.
if you owned a McDonald's, you have to sell the Big Mac. That's a non-negotiable. And wherever you go, there's going to be a subset of people that enjoy McDonald's. Well,
Hmm.
fitness is not different. Even if you're in a slower suburban market, you don't change how you act because there's less young professionals in that market that really do well for us. Being like our target consumer is like a 25 to 45-year-old type
Hmm.
A young professional.
Hmm.
Well, if you go into a slower suburban market that doesn't have these, it doesn't mean you change your tone or your voice or your offering because there's less of those people in there. Because when you dumb down your product to fit someone else,
Hmm.
you almost end up alienating yourself because you're not identifying with anyone because you're halfway in,
Yeah.
halfway out on both sides.
Yeah. Exactly. Sticking true to that target regardless of the market reach and the quantity.
Yeah. And by the
Mm.
way, this is not easy. So like I'm saying this almost as giant blanket statements, as if this is an easy thing to do. It ain't. It's not at all. So
Right,
I'm not trying to,
right. Oh, like,
sit on
oh,
a
just
pedestal and say I have all this figured out.
all we have to do is pick our target market and talk to them, and then they will all flock to
Yeah.
us. Yeah,
Yeah, that don't work.
exactly. Yep, I have to put in the sweat. So, what are some psychological barriers that prevent business owners, or maybe in your own experience, and how can those obstacles be identified and then systematically be overcome?
I mean, hiring is really difficult right now. There's been a big generational shift on a lot of
Mm.
things,
Hmm.
whether it be a perceived work ethic or a real work ethic,
Yeah.
whether it be different values, how
Hmm.
people want to work, choose to work, want to live, choose to live.
Yeah.
So there is a divide right now in hiring. And I think, I'm 43.
Hmm.
So reaching and speaking to the 25 to 30-year-old can be different at times. Um, I will say this, if you are a grinder and you are a young person looking to make a name for themselves, I can promise you, I've never seen a time that is easier to stand out.
Mm.
Like with us, like actively
Yeah.
hiring, you can make some noise because who you're competing with is not as driven as the
Mm.
workforce we were once working with. And by the way,
Right.
I'm not saying you have to be a certain way, but I believe for the driven, there's people like ourselves looking for people that want to give commitment and are
Hmm.
dying to cut their teeth and make a name for themselves in their career.
Yeah.
And I hope that, I'm not trying to sound like the old guy and like that. I feel like I've probably heard this same speech
As
from
our
from
as
my
our
old man.
teenagers would call you
Yeah,
a boomer of some sort. But yeah,
yeah,
I'm in your same generation. And so being on the forefront of building leadership teams, but also point of hiring for a lot of organizations that we serve as COO, and the dynamic and the structure and growth of those teams puts me in the
hmm
forefront of that. And seeing just the younger generation, I can relate to what you're saying, and understand it without generalizing certain things too as being
sure,
everybody. But I'm curious then, what would you say is the definition or difference in distinguishing a someone driven versus the hustle? And I'm talking about kind of the whole hustle culture that's been stigmatized over the last probably decade, and especially within our generation of, reaching burnout and the negative effects of being a hustler. How do you kind of distinguish and see those differently? Someone who's really wanting to cut their teeth, but is
yeah,
also not on that borderline of running themselves to death.
yeah. So you'll get a straight answer from me. Hustle culture, we need to bring it back, in my opinion.
Mm.
Balance is earned. I can tell you, like, I'm working towards balance at some point in my life, but you don't walk into a place looking for balance, or you're not going to
Mm.
be working for me. And guess what? There's plenty of companies that are offering these um, more flexible workplaces, and that's what's beautiful about opportunity in different organizations. And by the way, I'm not talking about
Mm.
more meetings and being a slave to email on weekends or not taking time
Yeah,
off. Like I believe in all of this. I take
sure.
a big vacation once a year with my partner and try to
Hmm.
unplug for 10 days, and I encourage our people to do that. But
Yeah.
when it's time to go, it's time to go. And I really do believe that, and this again, it may be it may be my environment that had shown me this, but I've yet to achieve anything in my life, whether it was championships or awards in sport or growth
Hmm.
and development in my professional life, by
Yeah.
trying to find balance. I'm sorry. I've
Yeah.
just, it will come. I'm chasing balance right now through work. And one day I hope to get there. But I'm still grinding.
Hmm.
And I think one of the things I always like to reference, like I like reading productivity books and I like listening to speakers
Hmm.
that speak about essentialism and minimalism and balance on a human side of things, right? But one of the
Mm,
things that I think is a little bit dangerous today is
hmm.
everybody is a balance ninja today, right? And all the people that are speaking about it and writing about it, they seem to kind of leave out those chapters in their book of their 15 to 20-year grind that allowed them to write the book. And now they have all the answers on advising the 23-year-old of how they
Yeah,
should enter a workforce. Well, I'll challenge them
right.
and say, get ready to work. Go
Hmm.
earn your balance. That's just my opinion. And I'm sure
Yeah.
50% of the listeners will be like, what an asshole. And I'm like, that's fine. That's completely fine.
I love this. No, I'm all about it because do we even really know balance if we haven't experienced the adverse of that? Do we even know what the outcome and what the end result is when we've had to hustle through something to get to a specific spot to really be able to find and know what that actually looks like versus somebody who's, kind of speaking to all of these things. Well, how far did it take them? What was their outcomes? What were their results? By trying to find balance first. Do they really even
Sure.
know true balance
Yeah.
without having been in a place where they're like, oh my gosh, like I'm upside down here, but this is what's required right now. This is what is going to take us to here. This is what's going to put me here, the next version of myself that I want to be.
Yep.
So I love that. That's awesome. How do we bring the hustle culture back?
Well, here's what I think. I just think it should be discussed more, right? I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about who I want to hire. I'm talking about
Okay.
who I want to grow with and who I want to give opportunity to. Like this is the company I want
Mm-hmm.
to build. But
Yep.
there's going to be, I would say, more of the opposite of what I'm putting out there. And I guess that's the beauty of choosing where you want to work, right? I
Mm-hmm.
do believe coming through COVID, coming through just the last 5 years, I'm starting to see a subtle shift in getting back to work. It's being done in a few different ways,
Mm-hmm.
whether it is a return to office mandate to trim a workforce, or whether it's um, companies now questioning their DEI policies, which, I think is right and wrong, depending on how they kind of approach it, right? Because diversity is important within an organization.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I think is interesting about someone made a comment about our training staff here at our flagship location, which is super diverse.
Mm-hmm.
And my partner said to me, she's like, it's hilarious. You're the last company that pushes diversity, equity, and inclusion, yet you have the most diverse training staff I've ever seen. I'm like, because we're just surrounding ourselves with go-getters.
Mm-hmm.
And they
Right.
do come in all shapes and sizes and different colors, but we're going after someone who's committing to what the company is trying to achieve and kind
Mm-hmm.
of like letting that diversity kind of happen there. And
Yeah.
not to get off on like a specific tangent there, because what I tell everybody is like I grew up Canadian. I'm about
Mm-hmm.
as open and as liberal as
Mm-hmm.
you can be. I also own an American small business. I'm like the biggest oxymoron on planet Earth, is what I am.
Yeah.
So very,
Yeah.
very open and accepting and love capitalism. So like couldn't be more different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but here's what I think. I think if you are a company that your brand is inclusivity and balance and all of that stuff, your brand, your whole DNA and being needs to accept that we're not that. We actually don't have to accept what your agenda is. But based on your DNA, this is who we are. We need to accept all walks of life and different ways of doing business and different ideas. So accept that we are trying to surround ourselves with a high performing hustle culture. It's okay. And I
Mm-hmm.
think both are completely fine. And I
Mm.
just think identifying early, like how do we bring back the hustle culture?
Mm-hmm.
We hire people that hustle.
Yeah.
That's who we like to surround ourselves with.
Yeah.
And that might not be for you, and that's completely okay.
Mm-hmm. I think you called out such a key difference too between uh seat time and how we're spending our hours versus,
Yeah.
well, I mean, just that, how we're spending our hours on time, quality in your seat. Are you responding emails at, middle of the night? Are you
Yeah.
working on weekends? Removing that perception of being a hustler, being driven is so vital because driven have the ability to discern what is truly important and not stop until they get that. Right. So that's like a key difference that I'm seeing too, even especially in this younger generation where they don't know, they don't know where their most prioritized time can be spent. They're
Yeah.
looking for reward recognition for burning the midnight oil and burning the, from both ends. And it's like, well, have we accomplished this, this, or this? Or, how are you doing the work you're doing? Because you're not actually, getting the outcomes that we need. So there's such a key distinguished difference in those that are driven, but also, yes, hustle, grind, but they're after the right things. So
Yeah.
how,
We
yeah,
just
go
brought
ahead.
on a brand new team member.
Hmm.
Um, and when I sat down with her, I said, listen, so we're going to work hard here, but I want you to know that I expect nothing of you on weekends. I expect nothing of you in the evenings. I'm like, with that
Hmm.
being said, like when you want to work, you can work, but don't think I will ever expect you to answer my call at 11 o'clock on a Saturday. I
Right.
said, once in a blue moon, we will all have a fire to put out. And in our world, usually that is
Hmm.
some problem with like an opening, like we fail an inspection and it's going to push back like an opening week. And then we have to put out that
Yeah.
fire. But I
Hmm.
told her, I'm like, that is not every weekend and that's not the standard. I said, so
Hmm.
listen, if want to send an email at 11 p.m. on a Saturday night because that's when you like to work, that's fine. If you want to unplug completely on the weekends, I will expect nothing of you. All we
Hmm.
expect is that the role that you're in place, do it well. And let's hit
Yeah.
our timelines and do it whenever you need to. At
Hmm.
our company, we don't track vacation time. We don't say like put in a request to go see a doctor. We just
Yeah.
get your job done.
Hmm.
And if we have to meet, during the week, be available midday to shoot by the office if you happen to be out working from home that day. So
Hmm.
it's weird. You could see there's a flexibility in how you want to do your job, but make no mistake, you miss a deadline, there's going to be a
Right.
problem. If
Hmm.
don't handle a vendor relationship professionally, there's going to be a problem. But
Right.
outside of that, it's like, here's what we expect. Go do your work. Let's
Hmm.
work our ass off together and do some cool shit. Like that's
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. What we're constantly framing for leadership teams, visionaries that I work with too, is because you talked a lot about this black and white versus gray. Where the black and white comes in is the why and the what. What is our purpose? What are we after? Why do we do what we do? Those are black and white. Those maybe flex a little bit here and there or evolve or iterate, but you stay firm on those. It's the how we get there where we're flexible, how you work, what it looks like, times, how we get from point A to point B. That's where the flexible and the flexibility comes in with the diversity of people, backgrounds, working types, personalities come in. And if
Sure.
you can frame it that way to know, how you get here doesn't matter as much as we're hitting this target and you are bought into why we do what we do.
So, what is your opinion on return to office mandates? Just out of curiosity.
I've been remote for the better half of my career. And so I think it really depends. It depends on the organization. It depends on the market and the target it's serving too, the type of work that you need to do together. But I have so much background and experience in high performing teams, all at a remotely distributed basis,
Yeah,
that I know that that's also possible. I think a lot definitely depends on the people and the culture you've built as well. Because, the time off requests and knowing who's doing what and where they are kind of can breed this culture of mistrust too. And
sure.
so when you get those right people in the roles and positions where they can shine and you can move out of their way, again, it's the how they work, where they work from doesn't matter. And if it does, there's a disconnect there with that person, not necessarily what their environment is. If they have the tools, the resources, and they have the accountability and drive to do well in their job, if they're sitting at a desk in a group setting versus at home at their office, shouldn't make that big of a difference.
Yep,
So I'm a very social extrovert, and I remember days being in office environments where I'm in my zone. Even as a social person, I don't want to get caught in the kitchen filling up my water bottle to talk with you. Like
sure.
I have stuff that I want to finish, I have stuff I want to do, and so I constantly felt interrupted. So I think
Yep,
that there's a detriment in some instances with people being in a remote office because I would just see the hours and the money wasted by the requirement to be in this office with so many people going on walks, going to lunch. I'm like, there's like 3 hours of your day that wouldn't have looked that way if you were kind of in your cave at home. And, but then I see the reverse of that too with people that don't work well at home. So,
yep.
yeah,
I
I
love what
don't
you
think
said.
I don't think it's black and white. So,
And I love what you said. It depends. And and you know what? It's
yeah.
always dependent. So, like, if you want to
Mhm.
work remote, go to a company that promotes work remote.
Mhm.
If you if the leader of a company is an in-office person, it's going to
Yeah.
take on the life of that. It's probably not a good fit for you. But to your point,
Mhm.
I have tons of friends who have been working remote for 20 years, and I have tons of
Mhm.
people that are in office people. It's not that different, just the voice it's just amplified now. But I love
Yeah.
what you said, it depends. And it's kind of like what I was
Mhm.
saying about just because we want to associate ourselves with high performing grinders, that's not right or wrong. It's just the way we want to do things. We like seeing people in our office at random and when we need
Mhm.
them, but it's not a
Mhm.
mandated thing to be here at a specific time every single day.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it depends. I like
It
that.
does. Yeah. I'm a very gray matter person. So in the
Nice.
conceptual, there's not a one size fits all anywhere. So yeah, love that.
Awesome.
So to conclude us, what are some practical steps you suggest to entrepreneurs who are struggling to maintain alignment in their vision and take things to the next level and scale?
It's, I think you really need to know where you want to go. Um, to
Mm.
give you an example, like knowing what I know now,
Mm-hmm.
if I wanted to go into franchising for a second time and I wanted to decide what is important to you. Do you want to create a passion, inspirational driven kind of brand, or do you want to scale as big as you can? And you
Mm-hmm.
need to, like, you really need to know where you want to go because the aspirational, culture driven brand has a ceiling.
Yeah.
But guess what? If your dream is as much money as you can fit in your bank account because that makes you happy and also takes care of your family in the way that you want to take care of it, and to get there is massive scale, you're going to have to master the art of average. You got to create a product that can work in any market in America and that the majority of people like. Here's a good example. If
Mm,
you Google top 10 franchises in not health and wellness, just top 10 franchise
yeah.
in the United States, it
Okay.
would give you a list of 10 places I hope to never go to again. It's not the things I like.
Okay.
It's going to be your Dunkin' Donuts, 7-Eleven, the good enough products. Jersey Mike's, good enough. But it's not going to be the best place to get a coffee. It's not going to be the nicest gas station. It's not going to be the best sub.
Mm,
But does that take care of the dreams you are trying to achieve for yourself? And if,
mm,
people say money doesn't buy happiness, I know a lot of people with a lot of money that are pretty happy people and they're taking care of their loved ones, and that's great. But maybe you're rooted in doing something different, like creating a lasting impression, being an outlier. Well, know that that's going to have a ceiling, and that's going to be tougher to
mm,
scale, and
hmm.
that's going to be yeah, it's going to be more challenging, but maybe that fulfills you more. So
Right.
for me, like that entrepreneur, they got to get a pretty clear vision of where they want to take it and reverse engineer the process from there and do it as early as
Yeah.
possible. There's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with pivoting or flexing in the future, but to get going, and if you feel stuck, understand what your
Yeah.
DNA is and what you're trying to achieve for sure.
Yeah. And just what you want.
Hmm.
You have to decide what you want. I like that.
100%.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for your time, your background, and sharing your story with us. If our listeners want to learn more about Madabolic, either the fitness programs itself or the franchise, where can they learn more and get in touch?
Yeah, so I mean, our word mark, we own it everywhere. So I think to get a good, get a good vibe check on us, Instagram's probably a cool place to see who we are and what we do. So just at
Mm-hmm.
Madabolic, Madabolic. And
Hmm.
then if a business opportunity
Hmm.
interests you, heading to our website and just the menu will have a franchising tab. That'll give you more on the franchising system and the opportunities and the territories that are still available. And
Hmm.
then I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. It's the one place that I've just, I've just chosen to keep my energy focused in one place and keep it more business related. And I love
Hmm.
talking with business owners and entrepreneurs, so it shouldn't be too
Yeah.
hard to find me on LinkedIn. And if you just shoot me a DM, honestly, if you want to talk further, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah. Love it. Well, thank you all for listening. We will see you next time. Brandon, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Joe.